Hey, don't wake me up if I'm dreaming, but this is J. Anthony Frankie, and you're listening to On the Fly with Stevie and Warden. Cheers.
You are listening to On the Fly.
What's up, guys? It is Sunday morning, about 11:30. I want to do this intro for an interview that kind of fell by the wayside, and I just came across it. Excuse me, just came across it yesterday, and I want to get it out here because this was an interview I did during the pandemic, and it wasn't long before I got sick with COVID, and evidently it fell by the wayside, and I apologize for that. But this is a big interview for me. It was with Alex Grossi, lead guitar player for Quiet Riot. This was not long. It's been a little while since Frankie Banali had passed. It was before they announced Rudy Sarzo was coming back to the band. But Alex was a great interview, great guy. I apologize for not getting the interview up here when I did, but with COVID, I guess it affected my brain too, because I actually came across this yesterday going through my old stuff. But anyway, this is going to be Alex Grossi from Quiet Riot, the lead guitar player from Quiet Riot, from right during the pandemic. So you guys, hope you enjoy. Thank you, Mr. Grossi, for your time and for a great interview. And you guys have a blast with this one.
Hello.
Mr. Grossi.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
All right, how you doing? Stevie Fly, how are you, sir?
I'm good, man. Just hanging in there.
Look, I know we don't have much time, but first of all, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I'm a big fan of the band, and like I said, watching you guys do the documentary, that was a great documentary.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of it was a lot of fun making. It was a lot of because of the story kind of unfolded
Yeah.
as it was going.
Yeah.
We're kind of not making it up as we were going along, but we had no idea that that first singer we had wasn't going to work out, and it just continued the story on. And it's amazing how when you do something like that and you're in the middle of it, you don't really realize how intense it can be till after you go back and watch it. So I'm glad we were able to capture everything, and I'm very proud. I mean, Frankie's wife, Regina, actually, directed it.
Yeah,
did a really, really good job.
She did. And I just watched the video for In the Blood. She did that video too, right?
Oh, she did that as well. Yeah. That's pretty impressive for someone. I don't know how much she'd done before that, but I was at when I finally saw the whole thing put together. I fucking lived it, so that's one part. But when I saw it put on a screen, I'm like, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like the band, it's a good. She told a story, which is cool.
Well, I always think of a documentary. It's really impressive if you really don't like the band and you become a fan of the band. And I think you guys picked up some fans from that documentary.
Oh, absolutely, and the fact that we were able to get it on Showtime. It was on Showtime for a year and a half.
Yeah, it was.
It's funny. Every band, every band of our genre is. So we're making a movie too. We're going to do this. You know what?
Yeah.
I haven't seen anyone else on Showtime. We were able to break a ceiling there. It's actually, I went a far further than I thought it would. Just getting Showtime and everything, and it won a lot of awards. It made it all the way to the Cannes Film Festival in Paris.
I'll tell you,
they don't just take anybody there. Yeah, that's for sure.
I'll tell you, I couldn't sleep one night, and I was flipping through the channels with Showtime, and I looked, and it was getting ready to come on, and that was like 1:30 in the morning. I stayed up till like 3:30 in the morning watching watching that, and I was like wide awake. It wasn't like I was going like I can't make it through it. I was wide awake. That was Of course, I DVR'd it. I've still got a copy of it on my DVR right now. Anyway, we talked about the documentary. So growing up, what was your first memory of music, and who was it that you really listened to when you were growing up?
The first. I'm 44, so I'm obviously a lot younger than the guys in Quiet Riot. So my first influences, they kind of started in the late '80s when MTV, when you become of age to get into rock and roll and MTV. And
right.
I mean, my first cassette tape, I think, was a Motley Crue record, Girls, Girls, Girls.
Oh yeah.
And then I got Appetite for Destruction, and then got into Kiss. I mean, I listened to the standards: Kiss, Aerosmith, Motley, GNR, Poison. And then my first concert was Poison.
Okay.
And that was really changed everything. I wanted to be those guys.
Yeah.
And I just literally, that was, once I saw that show, it was no turning back. I started growing my hair long and really started taking guitar lessons, bought my first guitar, and just the usual suspects for my influences. I wish I could say something cool, like I was really into, Pat Metheny or some jazz guy, but no, Poison. Nah. I wanted to be C.C. DeVille.
Nothing wrong with that.
I was never into the whole Steve Vai, Joe Satriani thing. It didn't appeal to me. It just to me, it's like a guy watching someone who can type real fast or solve a Rubik's Cube real fast. But it's great that you can do that, but I'm not interested.
Yeah.
You're not entertaining me.
Yeah, And I'm also a huge Kiss fan, by the way. And my first concert was Poison. I think Tesla opened up for them, and I think it was '88. That was my first concert as well. So what was your first band?
My first band was, I guess, my first one that was legitimate enough to go out and play bars was a band called Wake Up Jack. And I started the band with a bunch of buddies from high school. A couple of the guys were older, so we were able to play bars. They would book the show, and we kind of sneak in and do it. And we did covers, but the drummer was very into a lot of progressive music. So we did Dream Theater and Rush, which forced me to really up my game musically, because it's a lot more difficult to play that stuff.
Yeah.
So it broadened my horizons. And then after that, I ended up joining a band called Angry Salad that I met when I was going to Berklee College of Music in Boston. I went for 2 months and then dropped out to join a band, and then 2 months later that band got signed. So, I did go to Berklee, but not for that long.
Yeah, you got. I
guess if you finish Berklee, you did something wrong. Because usually
usually it doesn't work out too well.
Well, if you graduate Berklee, that means you were an available musician in a major city for 4 years that didn't get snatched up by a band.
Something's wrong.
Something's wrong.
Yeah. And you guys.
I know.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, you guys got signed by Atlantic Records.
Yep.
And then the AOL Time Warner merger came along and pretty much put that out, right?
Everybody. That when that happened, we got signed. We put out to Atlantic, which is a pretty big label, and we spent a lot of their money making our record, and went on tour with bands like Sugar Ray and the Goo Goo Dolls. We were that more like a pop band. And then when it came time to do the second record, AOL merged with Time Warner, and all of those Atlantic, Elektra, Warner Brothers records were all under the Time Warner umbrella. And unless you were Kid Rock or Matchbox 20, they trimmed the fat, and we were, we weren't selling the records that they expected, so they gave us a check to leave, and that's what we did. Happens every day.
Yeah. So how did you end up hooking up with Quiet Riot?
Well, after the Angry Salad, that whole thing dissolved, I decided that I had enough of the East Coast and had kind of exhausted a lot of my resources there, and said, well, fuck it, time to give LA a shot. And I literally, I joined a band called Ignite, and literally just packed up and moved. I was living with a bass player, and eventually that band, it was a hardcore, melodic hardcore band from Orange County. Wasn't really my thing. So I decided to move up to Hollywood, and I one night went to the Cat Club, and I met Joe Lestay, the singer for Beautiful Creatures. And at that time, DJ Ashford was leaving, and they needed a guy, and he heard me play and said, you're hired on the spot. And at that time, they were being booked by the same agency that booked Kevin DuBro's solo tour that he was doing.
Right.
And Kevin DuBro needed a guitar player, and they gave me his phone number, and I cold called him. And next thing you know, we're doing shows together. And a year later, when Quiet Riot got back together, Kevin said, I want to bring Alex on board, and that was it.
Well,
I got the gig to play with Kevin's solo band, and it wasn't like a big audition thing or anything. It happened very organically, and then I got to know Frankie, and we toured nonstop until Kevin passed away. It was pretty intense. Almost overnight, going from playing in bar bands and whatnot to playing with sharing the stage with Twisted Sister and Quiet Riot and Warrant and Docket in front of 8,000 people.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
What was it like playing with Kevin?
Kevin was so great to play with because he took the music very seriously and never mailed it in, or he never let himself go. Like, if you notice, when he passed away, he was in perfect health.
Yeah.
He was still in shape. His voice was strong. He never became a parody of himself like some of these other guys, Like, when Elvis died, he was heavier, and people remember that version. Kevin never let himself go. He took it very seriously, and he never phoned in a performance either. Even if it was a club, he gave it. It was like he was playing an arena. It was really positive. He definitely taught me a lot, and sometimes was hard on me about things, but it was all to make me a better player and a better all-around performer. And he held people to a pretty high standard, but in the end, that's what makes a band great. Is when you don't mail it in. You want it to be good every night. And he was probably the funniest guy I've ever met. He was always
he seemed that way. What I saw of him, he seemed that way.
Oh, he was always having fun. He loved life. Like, he just he wasn't grumpy about things. Because some guys, if the show's not well attended, or it's in a bad part of town, or he was always, his philosophy was like, playing a show is better than digging ditches. A bad day at my job still better than a great day at some people's jobs. So
yeah. So
he had a very good outlook.
You've been labeled the hardest working guitarist in show business because you've worked with so many.
Well, I don't know if I've been labeled that. I've heard people say it. It was on my Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
I think that was written in one of my early bios that someone wrote for me. But when I first moved to LA, I was doing 2 or 3 auditions a day, and learning 20, 30 songs at a time to maybe get a gig. I was literally going from audition to audition. I got called to audition for 9 Inch Nails, and then the next day I get an audition for some Avril Lavigne type band, all over the map. And 99% of the time you get rejected. So it thickens up your skin, and auditions are work too. It's not just when you're playing shows. When you're trying to get the gig, is harder than getting the gig than doing the gig sometimes. So it's a lot of it is definitely a lot of work, and you have to be willing to sacrifice a lot. Like, one thing that fucking really irritates me is when I talk to my friends from back home in Connecticut, where I grew up, and they say, "Oh, bro, you're so lucky." I'm like, no, I'm not lucky. I worked my
you worked your butt off for
20 years. Yeah, I missed all my friends' weddings. I missed my brother's graduation. I missed funerals of loved ones because I committed to sold my soul to rock and roll. So don't ever call me lucky. Lucky is finding a $100 bill in the road. That's lucky.
Yeah.
What I did was fucking sheer back-breaking hard work musically that I don't think too many other people that I know could have pulled off, because you got to really want it, man. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, because you've worked with some I mean, just to name a few. You worked with Janny Lane from Warrant, the late Janny Lane. You worked with Dizzy Reed, Stephen Adler. I mean, and the bands you put together like Hotel Diablo and now Hookers and Blow. I mean, you've got things going on all over the place. That's why I think that label may stick with you as hardest working guitarist.
Yeah, well, you know what? One thing I've learned over the years, if you want it done right, do it yourself.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of great musicians that just sit around waiting for their phone to ring, and I got news to you. It doesn't work that way anymore. You have to go out and make it happen. You know.
Yeah.
If you're sitting around and not networking and making yourself available to certain situations, you're going to be off the radar. Your people are going to forget about you. You got to force yourself right into those situations and stay on people's radar. I mean, that's why I've been doing a lot of press during the pandemic, because I want people to remember who, I'm still here. And and a lot of that has ended up in some pretty big things, like Hustler magazine just did a big feature on Hookers and Blow a couple of days ago. They put it together because they've been seeing our name in the press a lot, and I got called to do the Public Enemy record, the new one, which is huge for me because
wow,
Rock and Roll Hall, the new Public Enemy that I'm on.
That's awesome.
I'm friends with Flavor Flav out here because he lives out here in Vegas, but I made sure that whenever I saw him, I let him know it's available, and it finally lined up. If you don't ask, if you don't put yourself out there, chances are it's not going to happen. So you gotta, if you see an opportunity, take it.
Yeah. So after Kevin passes away and the band disbands, but how different was it when you went back to Quiet Riot? I mean, I know a lot of that's featured on the documentary, but how different was it without Kevin there?
Yeah, I mean, it was a completely different duck because Kevin, Kevin and Frankie were the heart and soul of that band.
Right.
And Frankie ran a very tight ship, and it was, in some ways, nothing had changed because Frankie handled a lot of the business and organizing things. But, it kind of brought me, Chuck, and Frankie closer together because now it was us versus the fucking world trying to get a singer and prove that we can do this.
Yeah.
So it was a different dynamic. It was more, you had to, kind of look at things from a different perspective because you don't have that. It's kind of like if having Kevin on that stage, it was Quiet Riot, no doubt.
Right. Without
him up there, and especially with some of the singers that, obviously didn't work out, it's almost like going out with a gun with no bullets in it. Like if you're used to having a loaded gun on you, and then all of a sudden that loaded gun gets taken away, you don't have that. You can't rely on this. I mean, Kevin could always put on a show, and without him, the difference was he was not up there with us. So we were kind of out there, more exposed and more. We had to step it up, on our end, and it was just, the camaraderie. I mean, Frankie definitely missed him. We all missed him, but they had such a long history together. Yeah, it was definitely tough for Frankie. I mean, I remember the first show we did, I could tell he was a little freaked out, not seeing his buddy up there in front of him. It's weird. And you know what? I never really understood it until now that I turn around and don't see Frankie.
There's no Frankie there.
Now I totally get it. It's the same thing because 17 years I've been in that band, and it was always Frankie behind the kit. Now, first show we did without him, I turn around and it's Johnny Kelly, who's one of my best friends that I love, but it's not Frankie, and it's just there's a certain wait, what? This is weird. This is really. It was even weirder with Frankie because I did 4 years of shows with Kevin. I did 17 years of shows with Frankie.
Yeah.
So it's definitely there's a void there, but time does seem to heal everything. I mean, it'll never be the same if there's only one Frankie Banali, but things seem to settle, with everything in these situations. So I'm optimistic that it's gonna be what it's gonna be, and give it the best version of myself that I can.
Yeah, because you and Chuck are pretty much the veterans of the group now. I mean, you got to carry on. And I what was the reception like? Because to me, when you guys put out there that Frankie wanted you guys to carry on Quiet Riot. What was the reception like? The majority of the reaction that you guys got.
I mean, most of it. I mean, I'd say about 50-50 positive, negative. But the negative are coming from people that aren't. They don't. These people don't matter, and I'll tell you why. Babe Ruth once said, "The loudest boos always come from the cheapest seats."
Yeah.
Meaning, those people they're not invested in you. You keep the people that matter. It's been almost 100% positive. And at the end of the day, we go out, we put on it, we it's a great band. Johnny's a phenomenal drummer, and Frankie and him were friends. It was all with Frankie's blessing. And honestly, I mean, you're going to have people that want the original lineup, but guess what? You're not going to get it.
No.
For whatever reason, when a band shows up and they've got a new singer or a new drummer, it's usually because, well, in our case, these people have passed away, but there's always a reason you don't get the original band. Maybe they don't get along with each other. Maybe one guy wants to retire. That doesn't mean the band shouldn't go on. I mean, when Babe Ruth died, did the Yankees call it a day?
No.
Or the Red Sox, whatever team he was on. I mean, it's like a team. There's no difference between a sports team and a rock band that's got a brand that's been around for 40 years and has these iconic songs. It's kind of the same thing. It's like people are going to die, but 10 out of 10 people are going to die. And if you've got a brand that people still want to hear after, the key guys are gone, and you can pull it off, you're going to see more and more of it. I'm telling you.
Right.
Now, none of us are getting younger, and these guys all have kids and grandkids and, mortgages and, but you need, I mean, if you work your whole life developing something, you want to see it through. And if, as far as people on Blabbermouth's opinion about it, all I could say is I'm flattered that I have a job cool enough for people to want to talk about. Because I'm certainly not going to a message board about, about someone who, sells real estate.
That's the truth.
All I'm going to say is I guess I did something right because you're talking about my job on the internet and I don't even know who you are. So
exactly.
Mission accomplished. As long as you spell my name right, I don't care. And as long as you spell my name right, spell the band's name right, I don't care what you say. It doesn't matter because we're going to do what we're going to do regardless of what you say. We always have. I mean, they said we couldn't do it without Kevin. They said that we couldn't do it without Carlos and Rudy. When in 2004, when the version of the band that I was in, set up shop. They said 17 years ago, they're a cover band now. Okay, then Kevin passes away. We start doing new singers. Oh, it'll never work. Now Frankie passes away. We have a new lineup. Those same people are saying it'll never work. Have been saying that since the beginning of the time when it comes to this band, So, I wish some of these people would realize that they should be. If you're truly a fan of this kind of music, you should be happy that we're doing this.
Exactly.
Hard rock is it's kind of to be, we're not getting younger, and we're getting, I'd hate to see it fade away, and if bands don't continue on like we're doing, it will go away.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's the 80s metal genre of music is legendary. I mean, it defines a lot of people's lifestyles. I mean, it's more than just the music. It's a place and time that will never happen again. So, but we should always be celebrated,
Oh yeah, and I'm like that. I do my podcast, and we talked on one of the shows about some of these bands back from the 80s say, well, nobody wants to hear new music from us. They want to hear the classics. And that's not so. I think AC/DC pretty much proved that this year with their new album came out, and people just flocked to it. So the more bands from the 80s that put out stuff, and my hats off to you guys. I've listened to Hollywood Cowboys. I'm a big fan of Hollywood Cowboys. That was a great album.
That. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great album. But the more bands that will put stuff out like this, that's the only way this is going to really come back and not, like you said, not fade away. We got to have more bands putting it out.
Well, you know what? You got to. It also, from an artistic point of view, especially when you have new members in these bands, it's evolution.
Right.
And you can't rest on your. I mean, listen. some bands of the genre have not put out new music in 25 years. They don't intend to. That's fine. They're still gonna work, but from an artistic point of view, I think it definitely hinders your, you know, I mean, being creative is part of what we do, and even though it might not be as viable as it was back in the day, it's still growing as an artist and, you know, creating something, you know.
Right.
Even if it only sells a couple 100,000 copies, it's better than nothing, and it shows, you know, it shows, a longer storyline, like the story's continuing. Every time you put out a new record, you just added more chapters to your story, you know.
Yeah,
because I mean, playing the state fair and the casino gigs are great, but those aren't marked in the history book. But when you put out a record, that's part of your history, your lineage, you know. But again, it's up to. I think it's really up to what band you're talking about. I mean, I know some guys definitely have no interest in it.
Yeah.
They want to put out new music under a different name, but anytime they do that, all it is like so-and-so new band featuring members of and the old band.
Exactly.
Why not? If you're going to put on a band, an all-star band featuring guys from Warrant, Striper, Dawkins, and Skid Row, well, and use that as your main selling point for your new band, you're basically just cheapening the brand your real brand. Just put out something under, you know, you spend your whole life building a brand, you know, use it, man.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You're exactly right. So these dogs are going crazy.
It's like, well, it does. At the end of the day, no matter who you are, if you're associating with a big band, that's who you're going to be the guy from that band. You know, I mean, there's some guys that try to totally reinvent themselves and, you know, get away from the '80s, but at the end of the day, oh yeah, I remember you were in Winger.
Well,
yeah, but no, I'm doing this new thing. Oh yeah, that's the guy from Winger. You know, I mean, I'll always be the guy from Quiet Riot after being in the band. You know, when I go back to my home, you know, no one talks about Hookers and Blow or Hotel Diablo or whatever new project. They go, oh yeah, you play in Quiet Riot because it's the most popular, you know, brand that I'm associated with.
Right.
So, you know, why not let it evolve? I mean, and just it's art, you know. Yeah, I definitely don't agree with the whole idea of just calling it a day because, okay, there's definitely no real money until you're on new music.
No.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it as artistically because, you know, some of these guys, I mean, Jamie Lane, working with Jamie, he always was working on a new record, whether it was for Warrant or his side project or his own solo band. He was constantly writing, and it was great material. I mean, a lot of it didn't even sound like Warrant, but he was having other artists record it, you know? I mean, you can put out a new song under your band's name, and it could end up being a hit for a new artist, you know? It was good, but if you don't even try to put it out, what's the point, you know? You give it a shot.
What was that band he had on the side that, oh, gosh, they were so good.
Walking.
What?
Walking?
Yes. That I listened to that.
Yeah, that was a part. Yeah, he had a record called Back Down to One, which was just under the Jamie Lane name.
Yeah, and Saints of the Underground was one too.
Oh no, Saints of the Underground. Yeah, that was Blue Blocker and who was Terry Kelly. Yeah,
they had some good. That was a great one. I really loved that. That was pretty awesome there because I didn't really expect that from him.
Well, you know, Jamie was one of those guys that could. I mean, he would come over to my house, pick up my acoustic guitar, and in 5 minutes, write a most beautiful, well put together pop song. It just naturally flowed out of him. I mean, he was such. I don't think he ever got the credit he deserved as a songwriter.
I don't think so either.
And because they associated him with Cherry Pie, which, you know, he didn't really want to do, but the label insisted on it. So, I mean, you listen to something like Uncle Tom's Cabin or I Saw
Uncle Tom's Cabin was great.
Uncle Tom's Cabin, I mean, it's just a well-put... I don't care what genre of music you're in. That's a well-put-together song. That could be recorded by a country artist. That could be recorded by, you know... a good song is a good song. And he definitely had it, man. I mean, I've seen him literally pick up the guitar and write a hit in 5 minutes. And and he wouldn't even write it down. He'd forget it the next morning. He just, and I'm like, do you remember that song last night? I should have recorded it. What song? He'd been drinking, obviously, and he wouldn't even, he'd be hammered and not even know but this music would come out and it was amazing. Yeah. And when he got sober, it was even better. He wrote even better shit. He was cognizant and documenting it. I mean, I have a song here that he wrote. Well, him and I kind of, I guess you could say, collaborated on. And all I had to write on was a stack of index cards, like for recipes in my kitchen. And he wrote all the lyrics on index cards and the chords. And the song, it was never recorded, but he just threw it down. It was a song that would probably take most guys a week to write, the craftsmanship. And he did it in almost on the fly. Very impressive.
Wow. So before I let you go, because I know our time's getting short here, what's your favorite Quiet Riot song?
We got a few more minutes to stretch out a little bit. We're good.
Okay, so your favorite Quiet Riot song to perform live?
My favorite Quiet Riot song to perform live, I would probably have to say Metal Health, Bang Your Head.
Yeah.
Because we close with it, and we always close with Come On Feel the Noise and then Metal Health, and that song just really sums up the band, the record, the attitude, and it's just people go crazy when you hear those three chords in the beginning, and people lose it. It's more so than Come On Feel the Noise because it's just such an anthem. It's so simple, it's literally three chords, but it's the power of that song, especially loud through a loud PA. That's the one for me.
Yeah. All right. What about a Quiet Riot song that you'd like that you've never played live, but you'd love to play live?
That's a good question. We've played a lot of them over the years. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if there is one. You know what? There's a song called "Stomp Your Hands, Clap Your Feet."
Okay.
That it's. I think it's off Condition Critical. It's definitely the kind of a TV 80s metal anthem thing, but I think it'd be pretty cool at certain types of shows, like big festival shows, big sing-along thing, But it's another one really simple, but I think it would be cool, live. So right. I like to hear how it sounds, and then make up my mind. But yeah, we've never delved into that one, so probably I'd say Stomp Your Hands, Clap Your Feet.
Yeah, one of my favorite Quiet Riot songs is Wild and the Young. I know that was off QR3, but that one was, that video is hilarious. I love that video. But before...
it's great.
What's it like working with Chuck Wright? He's like the journeyman, the guy that, I thought it was funny on the documentary how he always said, I did the work on Metal Health, but I didn't get credited for.
Well, he got credited for. He played on 2 songs on Metal Health. He played "Don't Want to Let You Go" and he played the title track, and then Rudy played the rest. But yeah, Chuck's always, because Rudy was the face of the band. He was in all the videos, and he had the Randy Rhoads Ozzy connection. He was kind of the guy. And he was a full member of the band. I think Chuck was a work for hire at that point. I'm not sure though, but. Chuck's an amazing musician, and I like working with him because him and I are really opposite type people. He's older than me. He's into more progressive rock. He's definitely more, into the muso side of rock, and not really into the dirty, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue end of it. Like,
right.
But it's a great dichotomy because look at it this way: if you're a Kiss fan, do you remember the Tom Snyder interview on Kiss with Kiss?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Okay. Now, see, that would be me sometimes, and Chuck would be Gene just sitting there pissed off in the corner. So, but imagine that interview if you had 2 aces and 2 Genes.
Oh
it
wow!
Wouldn't work.
No.
Chuck and I are kind of very different, but we balance everything out. You need that. If you had 2 Ace Frehley's up there, it'd be a disaster. And if you had 2 Genes up there, it'd be like watching paint dry.
Yeah, exactly.
So you need the strengths and the weaknesses of both types of personalities to make that dynamic. I mean, I'm pretty sure most of the great bands out there, they're all different dudes, but when you put it all together, and it makes for the perfect stew, you know?
Yeah, and last...
That's what and Chuck's like a big brother to me, too. We've been through so much together.
Yes, you have.
You know?
You guys have.
We've been through so much, and we always talk about it. It's like, you know, he calls me his little brother, and, you know, it's, you know, we always have a good laugh and, you know, take the piss out of each other, and, you know, I mean, it's great to, and it's also, I think I know I've learned a lot from him, and I'm pretty sure he's learned a lot from me.
Right.
You know, just us being from different generations and different backgrounds. You know, it's good to surround yourself with people that are different.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. It would be a boring place if everybody was the same. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you need 4 different personalities in a band to make it work, you know? I mean, Kevin and Frankie, for example. Frankie, you know, very organized, very all business, and Kevin was good, but Kevin was the life of the party.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
He was that, but he's a front man, and that's what you need.
Exactly.
Now, if Frankie was trying to be the star of the show and overplaying and, you know, getting up behind the kid and, you know, being a goofball, that wouldn't work. But if Kevin was just trying to be subdued and lay back and let the rest of the band be the entertainers, that wouldn't work. You need the yin and yang, you know?
Definitely. So, any chance we'll see a new album from Quiet Riot?
Yeah, there will be new music released at some point with Frankie on drums, because he left a lot of content behind.
That's awesome.
And that's all I know right now. We're trying to figure it out. I mean, with the pandemic and everything, it's really you gotta question whether or not it's worth it putting out new music now, because you can't tour to promote it, and people are just, you know, with all this going on in the world right now, people are focused on other shit. You know, I think we will. I know we will. I think the question is of when it's going to make sense for everybody involved. You know.
Yeah, as crazy as it is out there, the only 2 things I have to look forward to is sports and music. And I mean, if you guys put something out, you know, anytime I see something new come out, I check it out. But last thing, and I can't let you go without this. What was it like working with Frankie?
I mean, working with Frankie was, I mean, we worked together for 17 years, and he was like a dad to me. I mean, you know, I moved to LA. I met him when I was like 26 or 27, and yeah, you know, he was very, very stern and definitely made me earn my place in that band. At first, he didn't know what to think of me, because you got to remember, I came in with Kevin's solo band, and now Kevin's saying, this is the new guitar player, this is how it's going to be. And Frankie's like, okay, but I'm not just going to get a free pass with Frankie just because Kevin said so. I had to prove myself to Frankie, and, you know, he definitely was, you know, very on me about, you know, things like, you know, getting my timing together and tightening up my playing and my behavior off stage. And, you know, I mean, he was definitely, he was on me, but it was for the right reasons, because he said, I love you. I want you to do the best you can. So if you are doing something fucked up, or, you know, musically or whatever, I'm going to tell you, because I want you to get better, because I care about you. You know?
Exactly.
And that meant a lot. That meant a lot, because a lot of these guys, they just want to show up, get paid, and go home. But he would take it a point to, you know, walk me through the set and say, hey, you're playing this part too fast. You got to let this breathe, because he genuinely cared. And Kevin too. They took the music very seriously. They would have good times, bad times, ups and downs, but they always bonded over the music, because they did take it very seriously. Which a lot of these bands that, you know, they put out these records on various labels that just give them an upfront advance, and they try to make it for as little money as possible and just throw it out there and keep the rest of the money. And at the end of the day, it's not good, because they didn't put a lot of time in, and it shows. I mean, the last record that Kevin and Frankie did together is called Rehab.
Yeah.
And it came out in 2006, and I remember they spent a lot of time and money in the studio, and knowing they weren't going to make the money back. Because, at that point, no one was really buying this kind of music. But they did it purely for the respect and the reverence for the art form. You're only as good as your last record, so make sure it's good.
Yeah.
And they took a lot of pride in that record. I know it was Kevin's favorite record because he got to do a duet with Glenn Hughes, and he got to do some more bluesy shit. And him and I wrote a couple songs. That sort of, helped us bond a little more because, it's one thing to play pre-written songs with somebody, but when you create with them from the ground up, you instantly form a bond that's far different than just stepping in and doing a cover gig.
Yeah, that's definitely right. And people don't realize, and this is what I try to say a lot of times. Quiet Riot is like the band that paved the way for all these metal bands to get on the charts, because before Metal Health came out, there was no. I mean, I listened to like old top 40, Casey Kasem top 40. Before Metal Health came along, there was no metal bands in that top 40.
Yeah. Yep.
Metal Health paved the way for these guys, and it opened the floodgates because everybody went by that formula after that, and it just.
Well, you know what? They were like the Nirvana of what Nirvana did for '90s grunge. Quiet Riot did for '80s metal.
Exactly.
Once Snow the Teen Spirit came out, all of a sudden every fucking band in Seattle was getting a record deal thrown at them. And it was almost identical. And yeah, Quiet Riot. They struck gold, and all of a sudden, all the people digging for gold knew where to look. Sunset Strip, and that's a big piece of history there. And
exactly, and it doesn't get mentioned enough.
Well, what it is that this kind of music in general, I think, has always been to the critics kind of like looked down upon. It's funny, a new Elvis Costello record comes out, and it gets 3 pages of Rolling Stone. A new Quiet Riot record comes out, they don't even mention it, Well,
Rolling Stone, to me, Rolling Stone has never... I got it in the 80s for a while, but Rolling Stones, as far as that goes, I don't look too much into that. As far as critics go, and I'm definitely not a critic, but... I don't put too much in what they say either. That's music, movies, or anything like that.
Well, much like the people on Blabbermouth that like to bash anything, they're failed musicians. Like, I guarantee you, half the people on Blabbermouth that either play guitar, bass, or drums that say that we shouldn't continue and we're just a cover band. If they got a phone call saying, "Hey, Quiet Riot needs a new bass player," those guys would be on a fucking plane in 5 minutes. And
exactly. Exactly.
They all want to do what we're doing, and critics the same way. Critics. And a lot of times, these guys, they wanted to be in a band. It didn't work out. They get bitter. So what better way to get back at the industry than to have some sort of dubious power they think they have, which at the end of the day, Blabbermouth is fun to read, but it has absolutely zero impact on what anyone does career-wise. Nobody, I don't want to burst anyone's bubble here, but we're not sitting here waiting to see if we get approved on Blabbermouth before we make a move musically,
Exactly.
It literally means less than nothing. It's funny, but it's funny that everyone's got an opinion, and I'm sure if there was a Blabbermouth back in the late 80s, early 90s, you'd be seeing people talking about, wait, they got rid of Steven Adler? I think I'm Matt Storm. Oh, Guns N' Roses is over now. I'm sure you would have seen that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Don't you just miss the days? And I do. I miss the days. It's nice that I'm able to pull up on iTunes or whatever or social media. But don't you just miss the days when you just used to go to a record store or when you go to a magazine rack and pick up Hit Parade or Circus or Metal Edge magazine? It was so simple to me. I miss the days of having a hard copy in my hand.
Well, back then it kept the magic involved, the mystique and the magic, because you walk into a record store in 1990, they have 15 hard rock albums that are out, and those are your choices. You can't say, "Oh, okay, I don't like Mr. Big, but I heard this new band and I could find them on Spotify." No, it's either Motley Crue, GNR, Tesla, Mr. Big, Poison, Warrant, or nothing. And that's what made those bands so much bigger, because we were kind of force-fed what was going to be on our playlist. MTV played what they wanted to play, and if they didn't play it, we didn't know about it. We could not go online and see what else is out there. We got Headbangers Ball, and we got their top 10 countdown every day, and that was what you got. And either you like it or you don't. And after you hear a certain song 12 times a week, you're going to like it. You're going to buy it. That's why it was big back then. I mean, there were certainly things that came out that stood out more, like an Appetite for Destruction came out.
Yeah,
and then like Nirvana. Those were game changers. But now any band's song is available at anyone's fingertips, so it makes it a lot less special. And any band, you can go on have the singer for your favorite band do a cameo birthday shout out for $500 for you now. I mean, the mystique is completely gone. It's not. These rock stars used to be like these untouchable gods that you never saw in person, and now it's just you can follow them on Twitter and see them what they have for breakfast.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same
world.
It's the same with sports. It's the same with movies. The same with music. With everything is different. A lot different than it was back then. I really miss those days. But look, I'm not going to take up any more of your time, Mr. Grossi. I've really enjoyed talking to you, man. Is there anything you guys?
Thank you for giving me a platform, and I'm looking forward to seeing the final product. And I appreciate it. I appreciate you, and you had good questions too, so that was easy.
Yeah.
You didn't have to know what my favorite color was.
Well, I don't think you'd want to answer all that. But any new projects coming up besides Quiet Riot? I know anything going on with Hookers and Blow.
Hookers and Blow's got a lot going on actually right now. We just finished our record. It's being mixed and mastered right now, and it comes out May 21st worldwide.
Wow, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we're doing a limited run of vinyl, and we're gonna, and we have a lot of tour dates coming up. So whenever you post this article, link my Facebook to it, so people can see where we're gonna be. But we have a lot going on, and actually, Hookers and Blow is one of the few bands that is really doing well during the pandemic, because we were able to finish our record, and the shows that we do. We don't ask for a stupid amount of money, and all the, we're very, very easy to book and deal with, and it's a side project that's meant to be fun, Right. I mean, so we were, and people need that right now. They need fun, and they need to be distracted. I mean, I did an interview with Hustler Magazine a couple of days ago for Hookers and Blow for the music section, and this is Hustler. It was the day Larry Flint died, actually. Kind of crazy.
Right. Yeah.
And the guy said to me, he goes, I really wanted to do this interview because I think, personally, Hookers and Blow is the greatest cover band in the history of rock and roll. That's what he meant it.
Right.
Just because of our attitude and the parallels of censorship with our name and Larry Flint and all that. And then he also said, he goes, you're not just good for music, you're good for America right now, because everyone's so caught up in cancel culture and being politically correct and all that. I mean, not offending anybody. It's like, we're called Hookers and Blow. We don't go. You want to try to cancel us? Go ahead. You can't cancel something that's never been accepted.
Exactly.
So go ahead.
Well,
that's the beauty of having a band where you literally don't care, because it's your project, and if it stinks, it's your fault, and if it swims, it's up to you. You're holding the bag. So that's nice to see the other people appreciating that.
Don't you love the fact that vinyl's making a comeback? Oh, that's great, because it's selling better than ever, because it's a great way to actually make some extra money on your record, and I think we're going to do like 1,000 or 2,000 pieces of art of vinyl, and it'll be sold out the first day. Yeah, yeah, definitely will.
I mean, it's not cheap to make, but it kind of keeps the hardcore fan satisfied with something, because there's something cool about having a piece of, a record or a CD or something limited edition.
Yeah.
I mean, and hardcore fans love that. It's kind of like being back in the day when they had the fan clubs.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you get the vinyl, you're in a special little club, and it's and it also artistically, when you have all that real estate to work with for the artwork, you can have a lot of fun.
Yep.
You know, I mean, when we were just doing digital, lame it is to hand in a little thumbnail with your logo to iTunes, and that's it.
Well,
you can't have any fun with that.
Yeah, and that's the thing I was talking about. When you got it in your hand, I used to, with CDs, with cassettes, or with vinyl, what I used to do, I used to love to read the liner notes, because there was always something great in there, and who played on there. And then, bands like Kiss always have something extra in it, like the Love Gun, the toy gun, and stuff like that.
Only they wouldn't tell you who really played on the record.
Oh yeah, exactly. There's sometimes that you didn't know who played or whether it was really live or not, but I won't go into that. But it's just great to have that.
Let's just break it down to this. I had never heard of the name Anton Fig until a few years ago. Okay,
really?
And he was playing after. Well, I heard the name, but Oak was in the Kiss book. I forgot what book it is, but there's a book where they go song by song, record by record, and just say who played on it.
Yeah, It's Anton Fig played on most of Dynasty, I think, and Unmasked.
Oh yeah, yep. And Kiss Alive is definitely not Alive.
There was actually a guy that put a bootleg vinyl on Twitter just a couple hours ago when I was looking, and it was Wonderland, I think in San Francisco, 1976, and he said, this is what Alive would have sounded like if it was really live. And
exactly.
But that was such it was such a magical time back then, and in the 80s where, like you said earlier, Headbangers Ball. I didn't have cable, but I was bugging the heck out of friends of mine to make sure they taped Headbangers Ball for me every Saturday night. And that was the best 3 hours up there.
That was our lifeline to what was going on in Hollywood, interesting fact, you remember GNR Live?
Yes.
That was not live. That was recorded in the studio, and they did it at the same. And they actually took a live Quiet Riot concert and dubbed in the crowd.
Oh, really?
So when you listen to Reckless Life,
I will go back and listen to that tonight.
Yeah, when you listen to Reckless Life and you hear the audience, that's from a Quiet Riot concert because they did it at the same studio that Quiet Riot was at.
Wow, I did not know that. That's awesome. That was Steven Adler full blown admitted it. I was actually with Kevin and Steven, and they were reminiscing about it was called Pasha Records. Yeah.
And Steven goes, oh yeah, we just used your crowd. Because I said, Steven, how did you guys have such a big? Because think about this, how did they have such a big crowd if they hadn't even gotten signed yet? Because that was the thing that was supposed to be pre-Appetite.
Yeah.
So here you have this band that no one's ever heard of that with an arena behind. So I asked Steven, he goes, oh, that's just Quiet Riot. And Kevin just looked at me and goes, really? He goes, yeah, they took the Quiet Riot crowd and overdubbed it. That was it. And you know what? I bet there's people, I mean, you still thought that was live, didn't you?
Definitely. There's some I can tell that's not live. There's some.
And there's also no Santa Claus either, by the way.
I'll tell you that I think it was Kiss when they did the reunion tour when they came out with "You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best." You can definitely tell those unreleased live tracks that they did were not live.
No, of course not. No.
I
mean they're not even playing live in person now.
Yeah, they're backing tracks and stuff like that.
Well, you know what though? I went to the show pre-COVID, and I sat there with my girlfriend, and now I've seen Kiss a million times, and I gotta say this was the best show they ever done because they finally gave in and did the track, which enabled them to really put on the production, the flying around the stage and the crane. And you know what? I'll take canned vocals any day of the week over them not doing their big show.
Right.
Kiss is like a circus. If I want to see four guys sing great key, I'll go to a little bar and throw $1 in the fucking fish bowl and ask for them to play a U2 cover, and I'm sure they'll be great. I want to see Gene Simmons fly over my head. I don't care if his mic's on or not. You know.
See, that's the thing for me. The whole thing that got me, I was 5 years old, and my cousin had Destroyer, and he just showed me the album cover. And anybody that tells you that the look didn't draw them in a little bit, they're lying.
Oh, they were cartoon characters.
Yeah.
They made themselves superheroes.
But, you know, I've been, since I was 5 years old, I'm 47 now, and I've been a diehard Kiss fan for that long. And, you know, the music is good. I mean, they make good music, and it keeps me coming back. But, you know, that kind of music, just like when what you guys put out, you don't hear enough of it. And there's some bands now that are trying to come back and make it, you know, keep it going. Some young bands that I've talked to, and you know, it's just, I just can't get into any of the new stuff here lately.
Well, you know what I've noticed with those bands like Crash Diet, you know, Hardcore Superstar, and that kind of stuff, and even some of the younger ones. The recording process and the way they make music now, it's so different than what it was back then, where you're relying on technology. You can make everything perfect and have it sound like, you know, it's almost too processed. You know, there's something to be said for, and not to sound like a grumpy old man, but these kids can't play the same way as old school guys can because they can fix everything in the studio. You don't hear any kind of soul. You don't hear any kind of, you know, the human element of, you know, a little bit of a wrong note here or there, or the tempo speeding up, slowing down. And that was part of that, you know, 80s rock. It was never, I mean, like Def Leppard was like perfect in the studio, but those Tesla records and, you know, Poison records.
Tesla, yeah.
Sloppy. There's some real, you know, earthy, crunchy, you know, organic rock on there that's not perfect, you know, and that's a band that they can really play.
Yeah,
you know,
Tesla is one of my favorite bands.
Oh, they're the real deal. I mean, Tesla, Cinderella's another one. I mean, they play. All those guys are monster players, and you got to be really good to do that. And you know, just putting on eyeliner and leather pants and and doing their hair like that doesn't make you one of those bands. You got to have the vibe. And musically, I have not heard much that has hit me like, oh, this is really good. You know, this is a good representation of that kind of music. You know, like there's a Dirty Honey I like. I love Dirty Honey. One of the closest. They're one of the closest. They're definitely closer than most, I think.
Yeah, that when I first heard them play, I was like, wow, this is. And I said, I just hope this is the start of something here. I hope they make it big so people, other bands, you know, because it starts a trend just like it did back in the 80s, like we said with Quiet Riot. Then all the record companies wanted to sign all these bands that were like Quiet Riot, and I mean it just started. It started a trend, and I mean, man, gosh, if I could go back to that again, gosh.
Well, remember in the early 2000s when the Strokes came out, and then all of a sudden there was signing all those other. The White Stripes, the Hives, the Vines, all those bands, and they're all kind of this indie cool rock thing. I mean, I didn't care for the music, but I saw that as a mini movement, you know, for sure. They definitely broke the door down for that whole scene.
Oh yeah,
but you know what? It was gone the next year. It didn't last.
It sure did. I was never a big fan of that. There's some White Stripe songs I like, but. And there's a few songs from the other bands I like too, but it was never anything, no kind of music has ever hit me like the 80s.
The songwriting and that stuff isn't all that great either. It was more kind of like trying to be indie and cool and more about the image. But yeah, with 80s rock, you had to do the whole package. You had to have the great songs, have a power ballad, have the look.
Yeah,
I mean, they were requirements back then, you know. And they would also keep in mind back then they would develop art. They would put some time into them. Now, if you don't sell records the first couple of weeks, you're dropped.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, it's a whole different world now. But
it sure
anyways,
is.
I gotta get to this interview here.
All right, buddy.